Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. The Steelers and the Eagles are going to throw down in the Andy Weidel Bowl, which means lots of physicality. And we're going to talk about those trench wars in the offensive and defensive lines and where those key matchups are for the Steelers. Also, all of our Week 15 NFL picks. And while the Steelers haven't won in Philly, Russell Wilson's never lost to Philly. What's going to win out? All that here and more on the Locked On Steelers podcast with Jenna Harner today from Channel 11 WPXI. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5 or more. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As I said before, we're joined by the woman herself, Jenna Harner. She's back on the show. Jenna, it's always great to have you here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I call this the Andy Weidel Bowl because the Eagles were built, he was a big part of building the Eagles roster as it stands now. They are tough in the trenches on both sides. You got the Georgia defensive tackles up the middle. You have all those really good offensive linemen on the other side. They dominate the trenches. And now he's come to the Steelers, and in his first few years with Omar Khan, they've been doing the same thing for the Steelers' offensive side. They've drafted Broderick Jones, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and they're a big part of this. And now it's going to be really interesting to see both of these sides clash when they've tried to make those their strengths.
Yeah, and that was something I asked Mike Tomlin about earlier in the week, just how excited is he for this physical type matchup? Because we always talk, or I should say he always talks about the mano-a-mano component where it's guys in the trenches going one-on-one against each other. What are you going to do to beat your guy? What are you going to do to dominate and say, hey, look, like I'm the one taking control here? Didn't give me a spectacular answer on it because, he didn't have to. But they're excited about the physical nature that they know this matchup is going to be. And this is something I've been saying all week about just how much it's going to come down to the offensive and defensive lines in this game. And whoever can control the line of scrimmage in that way, I think is really going to come out winners in this game.
Absolutely. We got to talk to both the coordinators yesterday at the Steelers facility. I asked Teryl Aujstin about the Eagles' defensive front, the offensive front, mixing my teams up here. But I asked him about the Eagles' offensive front because the Eagles are the #1 rushing team in the NFL, and it's not just Saquon Barkley. It's that offensive line that's very athletic. They move more. And look, I want you to look at the points that he brings up here. One of them, namely, how the Eagles pull from every position on the offensive line. Tackle, guard, center, does not matter. They are all athletic and out moving in space, and how the Steelers have to prepare to counter that. Here was Steelers defensive coordinator Teryl Aujstin when I asked him about that on Thursday.
Teryl, is this a little bit more of a chess match game, given how much they run out of three wide? They'll still run the ball. You got to figure out whether to play base or nickel.
Yeah, it's always a chess match, but I think the first piece you put on the board is, hey, what do I need to do to stop the run? And so that is the first piece. So it's not really a big chess match. You got to figure out what defenses you have that are really solid against the run, whether it's 3 receivers or if they go 12 personnel, 2 receivers. But the bottom line, they are playing out of a lot of three receiver groupings. And we got to be able to stop the run. And so we're going to put groups out there that we feel can stop the run.
How does the way they use their offensive line stress you guys as alignment and communication up front to make sure that you're not being caught out of position with the way they run the ball?
Yeah, it's good. Because they're unique in terms of their offensive line, because a lot of times you'll look at offensive lines and guys have certain specific jobs that they do. And these guys seem to be able to, kind of do it all, center pulls, the guard pulls, the tackles pull, all of them. Most places you might say, okay, hey, the center might pull and this guard might pull, a majority of times. But not with these guys. It gives them maximum flexibility in their run game, which I think is important and which I think is why they're good. And so we've got to be able to handle that. We feel pretty good about our guys up front and being able to handle the different schemes that they'll give us. And then it just becomes a matter of, executing and playing at a high level.
And that execution is something the Steelers have done well, I think, a lot this year. It's been being in position. It's not just the defensive line. This is also about the linebackers. It's about Patrick Queen. It's about Landon Roberts. It's about Peyton Wilson. All of them are going to be big factors in trying to get ahead of where the Eagles are trying to work and being in position to stop them from trying to set the tone on the offense.
And I had to love what Keanu Benton said in the locker room earlier this week, where he was basically saying, yeah, I'm really excited to, not have to face Saquon when he's at his top speed and when he's, hitting that home run hitting ability that Mike Tomlin talked about Barkley having. But, it does start up front. And I think, like you said, it's going to be Cam Hayward continuing to have the season he has, Keanu Benton playing to the level he's been playing at, Larry Ogunjobi, well, depending on his status after practice, things along those lines. But then that second level of the Patrick Queens, the Peyton Wilsons. And that's where I think the Steelers, we're going to see the additions that were made this offseason and what the athleticism of those guys, how that's going to play a role. Because what you have in Landon Roberts, which is like the hard hitting. I keep going back to the fourth down failed conversion by the Browns last week, and just the massive hit that he had, the one that he had against the Cowboys, where, if they pick up that ball, that's maybe we're talking about a team with 11 wins here. But those guys, to me, the Peyton Wilsons, Patrick Queens, and Landon Roberts, they're going to be massive difference makers in this game. And I feel like, too, maybe just as eye test, I haven't dove into the stats as much, but I feel like in terms of tackling, we've seen a lot of improvement from the Steelers in terms of there have been some missed ones, probably like go back 3-4 games. I feel like we haven't seen that nearly as much, and that's going to be absolutely crucial when you're doing everything you can to bring a guy like Saquon Barkley down.
It's certainly gotten sharper across the board. It's a big factor there, just as the Steelers' offensive line's also gotten sharper. And look, this is a top 10 matchup on both sides of the ball when it comes to the run game. The Eagles are the number one rushing offense in the NFL right now, leading the league with 190.5 rushing yards per game. The Steelers are the 9th best rushing offense in the NFL with 132.1 yards per game. Flip that, and so those are both top 10 offenses. Flip it to the other side. The Steelers' defense, 4th best in stopping the run, 91.5 yards allowed per game. The Eagles, 8th best in stopping the run, 105.8 yards allowed per game. And so the Steelers' offensive line, they also have to counter what the Eagles like to do on defense. Here was Arthur Smith when I was asking him about the Steelers' offensive line growth and what they have to, what they've shown there and what they have to do in this game.
Arthur, how's the growth of your younger offensive linemen, Zach, Mason, Broderick? How's their growth in their offense expanded what you guys can do well and what you call game?
Well, I think that experience helps. There's some things early in the year and a little bit how we're built as a team, because there is an art to it too, especially with some young linemen, guys that just get thrown out there, and that can certainly hurt their long-term growth. So you want to protect them, and you have to do whatever you have to win the game, but just anything has experience, especially those guys having some consistency for a few weeks now as they grow together. There's a familiarity, especially up front, verbal and nonverbal. Just understanding, the week in and week out for these young rookies. It's such a long season. We hope to have a lot of football left to play. They don't get mentally fatigued. That can be an issue too. It certainly helps, and it's been exciting to watch those guys grow together.
How have you seen their cohesion grow especially in the past month or so, as far as their communication, how they adjust to what defenses are doing? For example, this past game, you guys ran it 3 times on 3rd and short and got it all 3 times.
Yeah, well, one, we weren't going to let what happened the time before, where you get caught with whatever it is, the replay assist move, and that's where you adapt. And hindsight's always 20/20. So that was a little bit of it. We got, very similar to what we had the first time. Obviously didn't get it done for multiple reasons, and I hate talking about it because sometimes it sounds like excuses, and you got to give them credit. And we execute pretty well. I thought we were very physical every down. The amount of guys that what you want to see as you get into December, and we talk about our style of play. It's not just the 5 guys up front. Sometimes it takes you watch a couple times to appreciate what Van Jefferson did in that game. Scotty Skoranek, week in and week out. He's got a lot of dirt back to him, which we appreciate. And then, one of the guys that I don't think, unless you're really sick in the head and love, O-line tight end play in the core, is watching what Darnell Washington does week in and week out. Arguably, he's not a guy that can dominate
at the wide position, quite like Darnell has been all year.
I think Arthur Smith brings up a good point here. It's not just about the Steelers' offensive line; it's about everybody, because that's what he's asked of this offense. Ben Skowronek, I think I pronounced his name right. I've been calling him Skowronek for like a month, and I can't stop. It's Skowronek. It's killing me. But Skowronek. But when him talking about how the other guys contribute there, I think that is also a big part of this game. It's going to be a team effort on both sides. The linebackers, the safeties, also going to play a big role in stopping the run for the Steelers, just like Darnell Washington's Skowronek and other guys contributing as well. They're all going to be playing a factor in getting this Eagles front off the ball. Also, but a lot of Georgia guys involved here. Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington versus Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, and Nakobe Dean. There's like 6 Georgia dudes that are going to be battling in the trenches this week, and George Pickens can't even play. So how about that? So it's crazy. But Jenna, that offensive side, that's also going to play a big role in what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, and I had to laugh too. I mean, Arthur Smith with quotes of the week, Skowronek's got a lot of dirtbag in him, and then all the Georgia guys, they're going to be going against each other. It's going to look like a 2022 spring practice. I mean, the familiarity too almost helps in a sense, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you know, when you ask guys, hey, how much does what you know of him and how he's able to work and what he looks to do, when you're asking guys like Darnell Washington or Broderick Jones, they're going to give you something, but it's not. It translates, but not entirely. This is going to be, again, back to the battle of the trenches. Like, this is just going to be such a gritty, tough, you're going to see just guys going at it with this intensity here on all levels, because for the Steelers, I think they are looking forward to the opportunity to prove, hey, look, we are for real. We are a team that is as good as our record shows. We beat teams the way that we beat teams, and we beat them well. And they're looking forward to this opportunity where, hey, this is the Eagles, one of the best teams in the league here. And they're looking to say, hey, look, no, we can compete with the likes of, the Eagles and the Chiefs and the Ravens and the top of the top. And we're more contenders than what people may say in terms of, okay, are the Steelers as good as the top teams in what we're seeing in the league right now? But I think this is going to be kind of that, measuring stick type game where you're going to see, is this team able to prove the legitimacy of how much they're a contender?
Absolutely. We'll talk more about this matchup in a bit, but we got to get to our Week 15 NFL picks next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We have a lot to discuss here on today's episode, on this Friday episode here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Of course, we got to get to our FanDuel picks. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, watching the really roll in with that. Prize Picks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. You just pick 2 to 6 stat players projections, guess more or less on those, and you can watch your winnings roll in. It's the only real daily fantasy platform with injury insurance policy, where you keep your lineups in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Pick keeps your lineups alive. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And now on Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as making 4 correct picks. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, and MLB, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's Locked On NFL to receive a $50 bonus for just playing $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. We're also brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers the comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% of gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off OMAHA steaks.com at an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchases may apply. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. We get back to the Locked On Steelers Pick'em League, where Jenna, your boy, is back on top. Up one game. Wait, you're giving me a face like I'm wrong here.
Oh, no, I'm wondering. I'm like, did you take a one-game lead? One game lead. I believe you're at 143. I'm at 144 right now in our correct picks on the year. I'm back on top, and I'm never letting it go, baby. I respect it. There's still, we got 3 weeks left here?
4. Yeah, right.
4? Yeah, including 4. So a lot can still happen.
A lot can still happen here. First place right now is a tie right now in the Locked On Steelers Pick'em League on ESPN.com. Matt Beebe and Sack Attack both tied at 153 wins, leading the pack. We are now at 400 people in the group, so shout out to everyone that plays with us every single week and making your picks. Let's get to this week's picks. And as a reminder, all our odds, ends, and lines are given to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. We skipped past Thursday Night Football since that happened last night. Let's start with Sunday, 1 o'clock. Commanders at Saints. The Commanders, 7.5-point road favorites over the Saints. The Saints have been a complete mess. Give me the Commanders, and heck, I'll even take the points in this one.
Do we know who the Saints quarterback is going to be this week, or is Dennis Allen still keeping that under wraps like a college?
I don't know, nor do I care. They're losing this game, Jen.
I could not agree more. The Commanders, I know that they had their little bit of a skid, but it was more of, in my opinion, just a young team figuring out, still getting past those hurdles of, finding ways to win. So, the Commanders are going to win easy in this game, no doubt.
Bengals at Titans. Bengals 4.5-point road favorites in this one. The Titans have been pretty rough this season too. I'm going with Cincinnati bouncing back this week. They've been good at beating the bad team. They just can't beat anyone that's not a bad team.
Yeah, and the Titans are a bad team. So I think Joe Burrow and this offense continues to do what they do. Jamar Chase is like playing himself out of a contract with the Bengals, or all I'm saying is they should have paid him before the season, because look what he's doing now. But yeah, the Bengals are going to just have a day here.
They could very well have a day here. I'll tell you what, this is an interesting matchup for the sake of where these two teams are. The Dolphins are at the Texans. The Texans are 2.5-point favorites in this game. The Texans are winning their division at 8-5. They're only 2 games up on the Colts, but the Dolphins are also 2 games back of them. The Dolphins, they can't win their division because the Bills are just on fire, but they are still in that wild card chase. They need to win this game, and the Dolphins are picking up now that Tua's healthy and they got guys back there. I am still taking the Texans, but man, Jenna, I don't know. I think there's something weird could happen here with the way Miami's been playing of late.
That's what I'm going with. I think Miami is a little bit more desperate, and there is still a playoff potential for them. Last week was the overtime win, right? Was that
yes.
Yeah. I think that they're playing some ignited football. Tua has some of the best stats in the league since his return, and they're not playing in the cold or the snow. So I think Miami pulls a little surprise upset here.
The Chiefs are 4.5-point road favorites over the Browns in Cleveland this weekend. Now, Jenna, on our national show, on the Locked On NFL Squad show, which I was part of, a lot of people made this their upset special of the week. They thought this was their bold prediction where the Browns would come out on top because they play, a weird, wanky style of football that could offset the Chiefs on the road. They get some lake effect snow like the Steelers got. Could the Chiefs come out on top? I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I'm going with the Chiefs here. The Chiefs, yes, they have won some weird and just bizarre ways against some teams that you thought that they would just steamroll, but I don't think that trips up now because they play the Browns.
The way the Chiefs lose football games is if they're not in a one-possession football game. And this game, to me, feels like it is going to be a one-possession football game, the entirety of it. Watching the way the Chiefs played the Raiders, watching the way they played the Chargers last week, they're not completely dazzling you in any way, shape, or form, and they're kicking a lot of field goals, at least last week. But I think that they're still a team that knows how to win. I think the Browns cover. That's my little fun wrinkle in all of it. But I think the Chiefs win this game. It is going to be a weird football game, though. It just has that written all over it.
The Cowboys at the Panthers. The Panthers are actually favored in a matchup. I didn't think I'd say that this season with how things have gone for them, but Bryce Young certainly turned it on. They are 2.5. The Panthers 2.5-point home favorites. I'm actually going with Carolina though because of what Bryce Young's been able to do. They almost took down the Eagles last week. If it wasn't for a couple mishaps by the Panthers here and there, the Cowboys they've been struggling, with Cooper Rush and such. Give me Carolina winning at home.
I like Dallas and I hate it, but my only reasoning here, and this is probably just insanely far-fetched, Micah Parsons and the way he walked off the field Monday
He was
night,
furious.
that was brutal. And so I think Dallas is preaching and focusing all this week on fundamentals and playing fundamentally sound. And I think they've been dealing with so many injuries. You feel bad in a way, but then also you're like, okay, it's the Cowboys, and that's my Giants fan talking in me a little bit. But I like Dallas here. I'm probably gonna eat my words, but I think Dallas kind of is at least like, we want to put the bad taste from last week, like get rid of that completely.
Jets at Jaguars. Jets are 3.5-point road favorites here. I think this is the who cares bowl of just two other bad teams in this one. It's hard to find something to latch onto in this game. Give me the Jets simply because the Jaguars are beat up a bit too.
Yeah, these are, I hate, do we have to pick this game? Why? Both teams are 3-10. I'm going with the Jets because they're a better team and they should win, but yuck. If you're subjected to watching this game this weekend, I'm sorry.
Now, your New York Football Giants are now part of the largest spread of the week. The Ravens are 16.5-point road favorites over the Giants. Jenna, we're both picking the Ravens here. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But is there any chance the Giants could cover this spread?
No. And immediately when I saw that Tommy DeVito was going back, I'm just like,
cold cuts.
What are they doing? I mean, hey, near Christmas, there's going to be some like 7-fish dinner shenanigan type jokes thrown in there. The Giants are going to lose and the Ravens are going to cover.
Anti-Italian discrimination.
I am Italian for what? So that's 7 fishes. We'll talk about that all next week. I can't wait.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's keep moving here. This is the Horses Bowl. I'm having all the bowls this week. The Horses Bowl, the Colts at the Broncos. Broncos 3.5-point favorites. Broncos, this is actually a really important matchup for the wild card. The Broncos are holding the last spot 8-5. They're 2 games up on both the teams that are close enough to catch them, the Colts and the Dolphins. But that's the thing. The Colts, this is a big game. The Colts basically need to win this game to have a shot at catching the Broncos. Granted, the Chargers also factor into this. But give me the Broncos. I like the way they've played defense. Bo Nix has been better. I think I like their chances to win this one.
Yeah, you got to give so much credit to Sean Payton, what he's done with this team, what he's done with Bo Nix as a rookie, how, like you said, defensively this team is playing too, and what they showed that they were able to do when they get in a shootout against the Browns. Like, that was one of the most entertaining football games I feel like I've seen all season. I like Denver with what they do a lot here, and I think that's going to continue. I think it's going to be a 1-score game and probably like a 3-ish point game, but I think the Broncos are just a better overall team, especially defensively.
We got Patriots at Cardinals. Cardinals 6.5-point home favorites. I'm taking Arizona and not thinking much about it there. The Patriots have it's been a rough year. Drake May's been nice, but everything else is not.
Yeah, 100%. I saw something on Twitter that it just made me laugh with all the Bill Belichick thing. And it was like Bill Belichick and Drake May, like passing ships in the night, like feels like some sort of Netflix, like holiday rom-com type thing. Love that. Don't love the Patriots in this one at all. Give me Arizona.
Chargers hosting Buccaneers. This is also a really interesting matchup. The Chargers are 3-point favorites. The Buccaneers, though, right now holding on to their division at 7-6. The Chargers at 8-5. They can't hold on to the division because the Chiefs are there at 12-1. But give me the Chargers. I like their defense. I like their way they've been able to pace things. But I would not be shocked if the Buccaneers found a way to win this game.
Yeah, this one feels like a very intriguing matchup on a lot of parts, a lot of aspects to it. But I like the Chargers here. My gut's just saying a little bit, LA's a better team. They have a better chance down the stretch. So I like the Chargers, but this really could go either way.
Bills at Lions. This is, for a lot of people, the game of the week. I know Steelers-Eagles is very enticing, but they're both on at the same time.
Why?
The Lions are 2.5. Why, right? The NFL really bungled that one. We're so going to love watching Bears-Vikings on Monday Night Football while we could have had one of these games. But Bills at Lions. Bills are 2.5-point road dogs. The Lions are favorites here. Give me the Lions here, Jenna. But man, I think this could go either way easily. I like the way the Lions are playing on both sides of the ball. I think their team style will overcome what the Bills do. I think the Bills are also kind of, they've also had their fill of some struggles here and there. I know that they lost last week to the Rams. I think that this is the last loss they'll have before they just run the table against the rest of the AFC East opponents they have the rest of the way.
See, I'm going with the Bills, and I feel like it's a
Ooh.
very intriguing pick. But the biggest thing for me is just how hurt the Lions are defensively,
They are hurt up.
especially in their secondary. That's a little concerning to me, especially when Josh Allen, every week I feel like I'm reading a stat where it's like, Josh Allen broke this crazy NFL record. He's the first player to do this. And every week it's the first player to do something. I think the Bills kind of have a bounce back performance defensively as well. This just feels like it's going to be a shootout, though, and whoever has the ball last is going to win. But give me the Bills.
Packers 2.5-point road favorites at the Seahawks. The Seahawks currently hold on to the 3 seed in the NFC playoff race because they're 8-5 atop the NFC West. They need to keep winning to hold pace here, but I'm going with the Packers. I like what Jordan Love's been able to do. Their defense has made some big plays this year. Give me the Packers going in here on the road and getting a win.
I like how complete Green Bay has shown themselves to be this season, and I think that continues here. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup, and I think that both of these teams have a lot of still really good football ahead of them, but I like the Packers over the Seahawks in this one.
Monday Night Football game number 1, Bears at Vikings. Vikings 7-point favorites in this one. That's not enough points after what we saw the Bears do last week. This is going to be even rougher. Give me the Vikings all the way.
Yeah, when CJ Stroud, my fantasy football quarterback, was on his bye last week, I was like, give me Caleb Williams. He's been playing really well. Granted, my choices were between like him and Will Levis, so I really didn't have a lot of options. That bit me in the butt. Vikings by a lot.
Absolutely. Last one here, 2 Monday Night Football games here. Falcons at Raiders. Falcons 3.5-point road favorites. Give me them because I think that the Raiders are just in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, I agree. Atlanta's trending downward here, but I mean, they're just the better team, and the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the league right now, and I think Atlanta gets the win.
With all that being said, we got to get to Steelers-Eagles. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You've just been hearing all those odds, ends, and lines coming from FanDuel Sportsbook, which is an app you can download right to your phone or go to their website, FanDuel.com. This week, the Steelers have stayed as 5.5-point road underdogs to the Eagles all week long as the Steelers look to win in Philadelphia for the first time since 1965. The Steelers' money line right now is at plus 205. The Eagles' money line is at minus 250 with the over-under set at 42.5 points. Where will you put your money? Make sure you do so with FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. And today you can get started with a big return on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5 or more today. That's $150 in free bets today to new customers if you hit on just a $5 bet only on FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com today to download America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, let's talk about this Steelers-Eagles matchup. All week, I have railed about how there is a curse on the Steelers, and here we are on Friday the 13th talking about curses and how they haven't won in Philadelphia since 1965, which means neither Mike Tomlin, neither Bill Cowher, or even the great legendary Chuck Noll ever got this franchise a win in Philadelphia since then. And yes, there's mostly been a pace of every 8 years or so it's limited opportunities, but still it's remarkable that it's never happened there. But then it was a commenter in the YouTube section, I forget their name right now, early in the week, who reminded me, hey, the Steelers got Russell Wilson now. Things are different. I'm like, yeah, so what? And he's like, he's never lost to Philly. And I was like, nuh-uh. And then sure enough, I looked it up. Russell Wilson is 6-0 against the Eagles, including a playoff win. And 4 of those wins are on the road. He has a 9-1 touchdown to interception ratio lifetime against the Eagles. He was asked about it, and he was kind of like, it's just whatever. You just take a game game by game. Can't take anything from that. He kind of brushed off that question. But Jenna, Russell Wilson, could he finally be the key to get the Steelers a win in Philadelphia? I know college Chris Carter would have appreciated it so that his Eagles fans at Cheney University would have let him go, but this would be, listen, Eagles fans, they a whole other ball game when it comes to this stuff. But Jenna, what do you think Russell Wilson can do to kind of help turn the tide in this matchup?
I think his veteran leadership is going to speak volumes in this game, because I think that's what we've seen a lot of this season, and even getting little glimpses on Hard Knocks. I still can't get over the quote from Broderick Jones where he was talking to Russ and he's like, man, I love how you get in the huddle and start detailing the play and then give us an inspirational speech. But you can see just the relationships this team has, especially offensively, and how they've bought into what Russ has done. And I know it was going to be something that took a little bit of time, just, adjusting to a new quarterback. What's this guy going to be like? What have we experienced from him? But you can see the buy-in that this offense has. But I think the veteran aspect that he brings to this game, especially against a young Eagles secondary with 2 rookies, that is going to be very, very big in this matchup, I think. And George Pickens, his status is up in the air, looking like he's not going to play. He didn't practice on Thursday, I believe.
He did not.
Yeah, and then Mike Tomlin said earlier in the week, so nothing seems to have changed. But you see the way he has divvied the ball up the last 2 weeks, and that's going to have to continue if they want to keep pace with an Eagles team that can put points up and put points up very quickly. I think it's going to be that case, though. I do think that Russ is going to be able to play a big factor in this. Fans aren't going to like this, though. I still think the Eagles win.
Oh man, you're spoiling your pick here. Well, that's a big key here too, Jenna. Is one thing. Russell Wilson has been so accurate with the football when targeting deep down the field. Right now, he has the second best yards per attempt average on deep balls. When he's throwing it this year in the NFL, only behind Sam Darnold. But here's the other thing about that is Sam Darnold, he has 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He has a lot of turnover-worthy plays. Russell Wilson has 5 touchdowns to 1 interceptions on his deep balls. And so it's like Russell Wilson has been able to make calculated risks when he's thrown that deep ball. And I think that's what the Steelers are going to need in this game, because in a battle between these 2 trenches, no side, I think, is going to fully dominate the entire game. There's going to be times where one side is winning the trenches and the other side isn't, but then it's going to flip on its heel because both these sides are talented in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So because of that, it's going to take these quarterbacks to have to be a difference maker here, who can make the sort of plays outside of the box that neutralize the trenches as a factor here and there, enough to kind of tilt the advantage in their side. Russell Wilson seems to have done that against the Eagles. Will he do it? We'll break this down. But Jenna, give us, since you've now spoiled who you're picking, give us how you think the game plays out. What's the key factor to the Steelers losing and your final score here?
I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be something like 30-27 Eagles. It's going to be a 1-possession game, and it's just going to come down to kind of like, I don't even want to say a last-minute possession, but it's just going to be one of those situations where Philly's going to have the ball late and they're going to be able to run out the clock. So I do think the Steelers have a legitimate chance to win this game, which is why I feel like it's so close. I just think that there's so many factors that go into it that I'm going back and forth about, and maybe I'll, change my mind as I'm kind of working through them. But I think what's really going to happen here is you're going to see it be back and forth a little bit. I think the absence of Pickens just is going to hurt the Steelers a little bit. I think Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are going to run the ball really well. We're going to see more of a continuation of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks and what we've seen from them in the short passing game too, that opened a lot of things up against the Browns. But I think Saquon's going to be a different animal, and it's really going to be a matter of, can the Steelers neutralize him the way that they neutralized Derrick Henry? Because yes, Henry scored a touchdown, but that was one of the plays where you're like, okay, we can live with that as a defense. I think Saquon's just going to have a couple more bigger runs, like a 35, 40-yard run that's going to set the Eagles up to kind of get out ahead and stay out ahead. But I think that the Steelers do have a really good shot in this game. I just think that this is going to be one of the ones where it's going to come down to the wire, but I think you're going to see a lot of good things from the Steelers to say, okay, this is a loss, but it's not as, drastic of a loss as it would have been.
I look at this game and I see several factors. We've talked about the trenches. We've talked about Russell Wilson distributing the football. He had completed passes to 10 different receivers 2 weeks ago, 9 different receivers last week. And that's a big part of what the Steelers will need to do in this game and moving forward throughout the year. I look at this matchup and I see, man, like the trenches there. Can the Steelers offensive line win enough to get the run game going? And so that also on top of that compounds with what Russell Wilson's able to complete downfield. Can the Steelers defensive front, disrupt what the Eagles do well on their offensive line enough to limit Saquon Barkley. You're not going to take him all the way like the last time they played him where they held him to 6 yards on 15 carries. That's not going to happen this week. But can you get out and you win enough of those so that he has maybe 80 yards, maybe 90 yards on like 20 carries? You're able to limit him from taking over the game and just he gets his where he gets his, but he doesn't make these huge plays. Then you have a chance. So for me, this game is going to go back and forth. It is going to go down to the wire, but it will come down to which team can run the ball late. And here's the thing. I think the Eagles have it in that department because their offensive line is more seasoned than the Steelers' offensive line. I think the Steelers' offensive line is still learning. They're getting there, and I think they're making great progress for who they are. But Andy Weidl in this Andy Weidl Bowl, he's building the Steelers' trenches in the offense. They are built in Philadelphia, and I think that is an advantage that carries them through this game. I do think the Steelers handle Jalen Hurts well. I think that they limit what him and A.J. Brown are able to do, like compared to last time where A.J. Brown just clowned the Steelers. Yeah. But to me, it's that run game combined with that gets them over the top. Give me the Eagles beating the Steelers 27-24 in a tight one where the Eagles hold on in the end here. But both of us have Philly here. Last time I think that we both picked against the Steelers was the Chargers game, and I had to come out with the bag of shame on my head on the Monday show.
You did. So hopefully, for us, hopefully you do have to wear the bag of shame.
It will be interesting. It's always fun. I always pay up on my mistakes there. But Jenna, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. The people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, thank you for having me. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram, Jenna_Harner, and locally, WPXI channel 11. If you're not in Pittsburgh, still stream it on the app. We will be in Philly this weekend, have coverage from the game, and all your post-game coverage will be in the locker room as well. So stay tuned for that. And then keep your eye out. I have a really awesome feature story coming your way next week.
Absolutely. Do check out all the great work Jenna does. They do amazing stuff at Channel 11 WPXI. I'll be on the Final Word the next 2 Sundays, so you can see me there as well at Channel 11 in their studios. I'm Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Got a cool feature on 2 brothers from Pitt basketball that had a heck of a night Wednesday night. Do check that out at postgazette.com, as well as a film study on how the Steelers need to survive without George Pickens, all at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And you can, as always, you can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content back here Sunday evening after the Steelers-Eagles game. We'll keep it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.